and I got the call to fill in the big band.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I got anointed for that one day. I was a messenger. I sat with the messengers a bunch of times, but I never officially was a messenger. But during that period, I was with 87. I was with Tony Williams in 87, and then in 89 I joined Hub, and then between 89 and 91 I was with both bands, and luckily there was no conflicts. I managed to get both gigs done, which was great.
Wow.
Tony was with Art Blakey at the same time as with Tony, and he managed to make both things happen some kind of way, which is really amazing.
Was Lewis Hayes in Freddie's band then? Wow.
We did some tours with Lewis. Lewis Hayes was awesome.
I'm trying to remember. I
It was
know.
like you, Benny Green, Lewis Hayes, and who was playing bass? Was it like
Jeff Chambers.
okay?
Ronnie Matthews made some of them. I'm sorry, which question?
I was good. I'm just trying to remember whether I saw you with that band.
live?
I saw Freddie with David Schnitter.
Oh yeah.
But that would have been earlier though. That would.
David was earlier.
Yeah, that
David
was like
was
early
70s.
'80s maybe.
Yeah, early 80s, right.
And but Lewis was playing drums with that band. Yeah. And
Yeah, Lewis wasn't the most consistent touring guy. Was either Ralph Penland or Carl Allen.
Oh yeah.
Those, but Lewis made some tours with us,
Yeah.
and it was amazing, man. He was just that swing, that chord note, man.
Oh, my God.
I'm talking about the chorus, Ron. Talk about the chord note.
I know.
That Lewis
I
Hayes,
used to
man.
see Lewis Hayes and Sam Jones with Cannonball.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Back
wow.
in the 70s.
Cannonball?
Cannonball and Zalano. Used to see that band at Jazz Workshop in Boston.
Man, Sam Jones is one of those people that
Did you say
is just so
Zalano?
underrated.
They
You know,
played
he
together?
just,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
you know, he's just like
Mercy
Writes a lot
Mercy.
of tunes.
That's where they recorded
Oh.
that first time.
That band. His bass playing is crazy.
That's
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So great.
I mean, just so. Like I always say that, like with Oscar Peterson, maybe Ron will agree, but you know, as elegant and beautiful, it doesn't get any better than Fig Pen and Ray Brown with Oscar.
Absolutely.
But the way Bobby Durham and Sam Jones played with Oscar, they played that gig like it was their band.
Right.
I mean, Ray to a lesser extent, but you know, Ed was kind of deferential, you know, and swinging great, but like Bobby, just he wasn't afraid of anything, and same with Sam Jones, just
Well, for me, the hookup, the corner note with Sam Jones and Lewis Hayes was like, it doesn't get any better.
Crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
with
Doesn't get any
Cannonball,
better.
yeah,
Swinging all
absolutely.
from the get-go, man.
Absolutely.
Swinging.
Yep.
Yeah.
Taking care of business big time.
Yep. Yeah. Fantastic.
And then I was lucky, I was just about 18.
I have to run.
And somebody
Okay,
said,
sweetheart.
I was in
Before you
Boston
go,
at the
so
time.
nice to
They
see
said, you
you
gotta come
all.
hear this piano
Can
player
you
at the Jazz Workshop.
give
Yeah.
his
Okay.
one pearl of
So we
wisdom?
walk in and it's
What
Bill
would be the
Evans
one
with,
thing you think would be the best advice
Eddie
you could give them?
Gomez and
What do you think would be the one thing that you would impart in them? Would it be, you know, try to get management early, or don't get management at all, or, you know, I mean, anything that you think, what was the best advice you ever received as a young musician? We'll give them that.
Keep transcribing.
Keep learning.
Very good.
That's good advice. That's great advice.
Okay.
Yeah, never stop transcribing.
I
I'm
love
trying
that.
to take that with my own advice.
Yeah.
I transcribe all the time, still now. I'm always
Yeah.
I did some this week.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, I mean, I've always been told, and I do believe this, that if you take care of the music will take care of you. And that's something that Dizzy said. And I think that's very, very true. And yeah, I think playing music is a mentally challenging proposition. So just take care of yourself. And this is all about long game.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
taking care of yourself, taking care of your relationship with your instrument, your relationship with the people in your life, and just stay really kind to yourself and patient with urgency also.
Yeah.
Right.
Conviction.
Those are the things that I'm trying to live by. So.
Okay. And Muriel, by way of introduction, this is Joe. Joe was our
Nice to
second
meet you.
place winner for performance, and Richard is the other
Awesome.
over there. So you had a hand
Thanks.
in their success, so to speak.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much.
Maria's
Keep it up.
killing
Keep up
drum
the good
up
work.
there.
Oh, of course, yeah, I've heard.
She's killing.
I've heard it, yeah.
All right, sweet girl.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Have a great gig, okay?
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank
Take care of
you.
yourself. And yeah. Good luck today. Have fun.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks.
for having me.
She was
Thanks
a-
for
there
coming.
was a woman
Bye, Muriel.
Bye,
who saw the
sweetie.
show. We had people come in town.
That is so nice of her to do that.
Oh, cool.
What have you been transcribing recently? Like, what are you listening to here?
Well, the latest thing I'm into is I've been trying to decode Jacob Collier's.
Oh, whoa.
I've been trying to decode Jacob Collier's harmony. That's a big freaking job, boy. That's that kid, boy.
Wow.
He's got so much, because he's like, he just does stuff. He's done a ton of study, you know. But when he's able to execute stuff and the level of harmony, I mean, I was always a big fan of Take Six. He's like Take Six on steroids. Like,
Yeah, right.
It's really whole. And then I'm really fascinated by some of his rhythmic concepts. Some of which I hear in like Chris Potter, some of those guys, like five subdivisions and five like if you take a slow tempo, he talks about the idea of adding a notation. So you got 4/4. Put another number on top for the subdivision of the actual beat. So 5/4/4. So right. So for example, he does a lot with five within the beat. You can do 3/4/4. You could do. And what's cool about that is it makes you just look at grooves and look at time in another kind of way, and then look at phraseology in another kind of way. So like he'll do like tempos here. And then Potter's doing this in some of his writing. With James Franzi's, what they can do, James Franzi's keyboard player, what they can actually execute is real comfort in that. And then the drummer's Eric Collin, and they can all make this kind of subdivision within the subdivision work, subdivision within the beat, and then turn it into an improvisational color.
That's the step that eludes me. Is like when people do that, these complex academic approaches, and then they can make it sound organic.
Yeah.
That's the step.
But it's like anything
it doesn't
else.
happen often. A lot of times.
But it's like everything else, right? It's like playing 2-5-1. Like a 2-5-1, the first can be an academic thing until you digest and internalize the direction.
That's exactly right.
And those guys have it. So I'm like, okay, I'm really fascinated by some of this stuff intellectually, and then musically, it just sounds cool. So I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. Let me see if I can find a way to put that into my writing.
Yeah.
But Jacob Collier is like, he's a microtonal. The biggest fascination, besides the actual harmony stuff, it's like really extending how the resolutions go. Way outside the key and way back in the key. Way outside the key, way back into the key in a way that still feels. He did arrangements on Moon River and on In the Bleak Morning, and he just did one on You and I. He did one from his first album on You and I, which I've been checking out.
I know that recording, yeah.
The You and I, In My Room. And the You and I, it's got so much harmony in it that it's like, I'm like still decoding what that is.
Yeah.
So that's one whole thing. And then the microtonal, I can't hear like that. I mean, I can tell what's going on. Like I can hear from just tuning into Well Tempered. Like I can hear when he shifts between those and then ends up in 14 cents higher or whatever, right? So I can hear all that, but I can't find a utility for it. It's just fascinating to see. Okay, now the whole thing is in G half sharp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Between G sharp, G and G sharp, and it's like okay, and it sounds and it's like a, and then you hear in Moon River, he just gradually. Like it's from A427 to A455, and it's gradually going.
Yes.
And I'm like, and sure enough, you hear it open up. You get brighter and brighter and brighter. I'm like, damn.
It's a nice texture.
That's a beautiful texture. So I can't figure out how I can use that. I'm just fascinated by the idea of different tunings.
He actually, I saw a master class, or I attended a master class of his one time, and it was on Zoom, but he was like in his room, and it's fascinating how his brain works. He was describing his process, and somebody had asked him about the microtonal stuff, and he was describing why he does it, like what the utility is, and he actually was playing the theme song from Family Guy. Because he had been watching Family Guy, I guess, and he was like, let me just take like this song, and I'll describe why I use the microtone stuff, and he was saying because like there's points at which like say you want like the bass line to go down like a certain number of steps, but like you're starting on D and you need to get to C. You only got one note in between that, In
the Well Tempered, right?
Yeah. And so he was saying like, but you have this amount of beats, so he said like, I'm just kind of cheating. I'm just kind of like making the bass line go down.
What is a microtone? Is that like a subdivision of
a half step?
What happened? What the basic kind of division in terms of Well Tempered clavier is between a half step between C and C sharp.
Right.
There's 100 cents.
Right. Okay.
So what you can do is he can hear all 100 cents apparently. Like he can really peep that. That's that, and he in his singing, all the stuff.
The difference between him and me is I can hear them, but they don't sound good to me.
Well, he can. What the trick is, if you.
No, I'm not trying to be funny.
No. Well, most of us like perceive things as out of tune. So certain things, because of low-tempered clavier, our ear is very used to it. But if you tune according to the overtone series, that's what they call just tuning. And what happens in the overtone series is that because you've got these notes, and you've got the C, C again, G, C, then E, sort of kinda, then G, sort of kinda, and then B flat, sort of kinda.
Yeah.
But those reinforce each other if you tune them according to the actual sort of kindas.
Yeah.
They actually ring a whole, major triads ring anyway.
Right.
But if you tune them according to the overtones, they ring even more.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's what the microtonal thing is.
I got you.
So your E,
So there's
But the E is supposed to be really flat, right?
the E is supposed to be really flat.
So you're really perceiving these things on a subconscious level when they start resonating in a way.
In a way, but it's also a physical component because the
amazing.
actual overtone series is actually reinforced.
Wow.
So when you play a C and a G, well, the G is already in the C,
Right.
depending on what instrument you're playing. See what I'm saying? The C is
Yeah.
you play an E,
Of course,
and
yeah.
E is already
It's part of the
also
overtone series,
as part of the
but like-
overtone series. That's why things ring.
But like for instance, my instrument, because it's tuned.
Right.
Nothing I can do about that.
Walter clavier and piano's the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Piano's the same.
Yeah. But you can. I find it fascinating with. I mean, this doesn't apply to you guys because you can manipulate your pitches.
With trombones and tenors,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you can get all up in between everything. And,
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
But-
we shed. Like, do you do Sigurd Rashford stuff?
I haven't got to it yet. Yeah. So
Yeah,
What do you call
like
that?
the
Sigurd Rasch is a great classical alto player.
Oh,
With
wow.
exercises, with microtonal exercises, so you can start to hear.
Wow.
Yeah.
But what does that do to people? Like, I have a dear friend who, her pitch is so perfect that the world is painful to her.
No.
And if you can tell her, sharp a B flat, but don't sing a, sharp a B, but don't sing a C, right? And she can do it. But
Yeah.
she can't sit down to a piano. She's quite a pianist as well. She can't sit down to a piano that's not so perfectly tuned because it literally all but causes her head to explode. And so I would find that absolutely impossible.
It's hard.
I have the same thing with color that some of you brilliant musicians have with, what we're talking about here that I understand, but I can't even begin.
thing?
Well, it's in the same part of the brain. The same part of the brain that gives you perfect pitch can also give you perfect color, which means that I can go out, if you say, Sydney, bring me back something else that is this exact shade of red, I will go out into the world, come back, and I will bring you the exact shade of red.
Wow.
But if I'm in a room that isn't, like the colors don't go together or the paintings are hung off or whatever, like I sit like
Gives you
this
some
because
dissonance.
it is
Like dissonance.
it is as much dissonance
Wow.
for me that way as it would be for those of you that have perfect pitch, which mine is a curse. So having
I'm
perfect
suddenly
pitch,
very
I would not be able to
self-conscious about
stand
my
up.
wardrobe.
Everyone's doing great.
I'm all right.
Painting right behind you that's a little crooked. Get me out.
I moved it twice already and it's not staying, so it's best I don't look.
So you don't look at
It's
it.
just best because it's really
So
distracting.
my brother got out of playing trombone because he had perfect pitch. He couldn't take it. He would go to a gig and the piano would be off.
Yeah.
So he started freaking. So he quit.
Well, and, as a singer, I have, relative pitch in a sense, and I can certainly go back to, if you've stopped playing, we've stopped, and, I'm always right on the money. But I'm okay, if the piano's a little off, it's like, okay, well, it's a little off, But what gets me is if the piano's a little off and then everyone else is, like, oh no, we all got to tune to that piano.
Yeah.
We got to sing to that piano because it's, then it is.
I have two little
Cool.
secondhand anecdotes from jazz veterans that I was lucky enough to work with.
Which are?
Well, in this case, one of them is they're two guitar players, Barney Kessel and Herb Ellis. I worked with those guys a lot.
Wow.
When I started playing with them when I was about 21. Did you ever work with either of those guys? But the brilliant guy, they both played with. Barney played with Bird. He was on early records with Bird, like Dial records, like Relaxing at Camarillo, first Yardbird Suite. Anyway,
Wow.
so West Coast. Anyway, Barney told me this again secondhand, but he said he remembers being in New York in the late '50s, and he was in a club someplace, and Paul Chambers came in, And he said Paul Chambers said to somebody next to him, he said, "Man, I just played this gig at this joint with this new saxophone player from the West Coast named Ornette Coleman, and he called My Blue Heaven an E flat. Let's see, how can I quote him? He said, and I played an E flat and I was wronger than a son of a gun. He did not say son of a gun. Similar, not even fewer syllables. Imagination. Anyway, he said, I played an E flat and I was wronger than, and then the other one is talking about, these are about pitches, because I guess Ornette, wasn't he one of the first guys in jazz to really kind of use the in-between thing? I mean, they didn't call them micro pitches, but what did he call them?
No idea.
But
not sure.
He's got a name for his the 2 keys or 3 keys.
Something melodica.
Yeah, I'm not describing that.
But I mean, you listen to it, and he definitely was playing. It's like the hippest sounding out of tune playing.
Yeah. That's true.
I dug it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really dug that band with Billy Higgins.
I always just noticed that though with how him and Don kind of like blend.
Yeah.
It's always like, it gives it an effect, like on Lonely Woman, like how they're playing the melody together.
Absolutely.
So slightly out of tune.
Absolutely.
Like,
I know.
There's a rub, but it's like, it's raw.
And it's,
I think that's,
you think how brave it was at that time to come out.
I think that's the key. The key is, I think the concept of consonance and dissonance. Well, we know those are personal in a way anyway. Yeah. Right? Because Charlie Parker.
Like Color is.
That Color is. Louis Armstrong didn't like Charlie Parker, right?
Yeah.
I mean, two geniuses don't like whatever.
Yeah.
But so it's all about how you see it. So I think that if someone could figure out a way to manage what they perceive as dissonance, right? And I think someone like Jacob Collier has figured out, okay, I got 100 cents between every note, and I'm going to train myself to hear and deal with all that.
Yeah.
And that way, the thing doesn't drive your trombone player crazy or your other friend crazy. He went through a process some kind of way, maybe through his conservatory training or through whatever. Yeah. And figured out how to utilize that stuff and have not be. Now that's a lot to perceive. I mean, with us, 12 notes is a lot for me and for most of us. Like
that's a lifetime's work.
That's a lifetime's work anyway. So if you've got 1,200 notes in theory. But some kind of way, I think he's dealing with it, and you can hear it in his music. His music reflects it, and his whole point is emotional. That's why he's coming from an emotional place. I mean, you can hear in the way he describes it in his workshop, and I've seen a few of the Zoom ones as well, where he talks about the whole point of this is not about the technique of it; it's really about what's the story. Yeah. He's time and time again talking about the story. So it's a very mature perspective. For such a academic, academically informed, collection of data that he deals with.
So my other secondhand story was from Herb Ellis, and he said he was on a Jazz at the Philharmonic tour, and Modern Jazz Quartet, which is Paul Jackson, John Lewis, Percy Heath, and Connie Day, and they're playing every night. And they had, if you've heard that group, pretty complex arrangements, not just calling a tune, but John Lewis wrote a lot of classical sounding things and all kinds of stuff. They show up at a concert hall or some venue. The piano is a half step low.
Oh my God!
Wow,
that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Wow, I'll never forget Herb's words. He said, they started playing, and Milt said, "I think I got it," and he said Baggs played the entire concert. He said, Herb said, I did not hear any wrong notes. Yeah. Which means he was playing in weird keys and he was playing transposing. Yeah. Which that just points to the genius of Milt Jackson.
I heard about that with him.
Did you? Yeah.
I heard he was like that.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that story, but I heard he was like that level.
He had a photographic memory. The other thing is, one time I saw him, John Lewis had brought in a new chart, and it was like long. Milt did not enjoy reading like that. He wasn't a great sight reader, which is fine. You play that brilliantly. He was a one of a kind musician, a visionary. And so, but he had the music behind him, and he would look at like a page or a half a page, and
Get out
he'd go, "Hey, I'm telling you, and retain it, and play,
How about that?
and then do it again, and then."
Oh my God.
But you know, Wallace Warren was like that. Wallace Warren could look at something and have it. He had a photograph.
Wallace,
Wow.
is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think his son. I think his son has it too.
Wow.
Wallace Jr. I think that because you know Wallace Jr. is the son of Jerry Allen and Wallace Warren.
Right.
If there isn't some people there.
And I had him at Harvard when I was running the big band there as a guest. He heard everything and played.
Wow.
It was magnificent.
Wow.
Magnificent to have him as a guest. He passed away, of course, but
I didn't know Wallace at all, really, but he's from D.C., which is where I'm from. And
Oh.
I'm very proud of Wallace
Right.
Rhodey. You know,
Yeah.
he's one of our heroes.
Yeah, he told me a story when I interviewed him for about the rebirth of the Cool album.
oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
so Miles was originally supposed to be on it, and of course passed away.
Right.
And they're starting to rehearse, and he starts playing something, and Jerry said, "Well, where did you learn how to play that?" And he went, I looked up to the sky, because
Yeah.
he said it was for Miles, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, he sounded a lot like Miles at times.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, Miles is.
I mean, in a great way.
Oh yeah, no, that Miles, and he has his own thing, like really. But he definitely is. That's Miles is his man.
Yeah.
Always. You know,
Yeah.
blue trumpet for a long time. You
Sure.
know, bless his heart, man.
Yeah.
I went with him a lot. I mean, with Tony's band, we played a lot of gigs, and then I had him on. We did some other things together after that as well. But unfortunately, I couldn't play with him in Harvard. That was the year I had my crazy jaw surgery. I had to take the whole semester off. I had a cyst inside this jawbone.
Wow.
I had to take this whole semester off and had surgery removed. It was a whole crazy story,
Oh,
but
man.
we couldn't play the whole semester.
Oh, that's scary stuff.
So it was trippy. That's a crazy story. But
Yeah.
that was my one regret about that. We hung and we played and everything, and it was a great concert,
Sure.
whatever. But didn't get to play with him again. Which is a bummer.
Yeah.
I was really psyched to play with him, and just that wasn't to be. But
Right.
man, what a genius cat.
Wow. Yeah.
But you know, people talk about the high functional aspect of music. Luckily, you don't have to be a genius to play jazz. You know, jazz is this language that really can welcome all players. You know,
Right.
at whatever level, and that's what's
Yeah.
great about teaching it. As Oscar knows very well, and those who teach it's one of the best things about it. You can get something out of it at any level.
Are you
Get
William
joy out of
Patterson
it.
as well? No, I'm Monkfish.
He runs the program. Monkfish, yeah.
Who runs the program now?
Yeah, that's
Fantastic.
great.
Great.
But yeah, but you know, at the very highest levels, which again, I for myself, I'm mostly fascinated by certain things, and just because I'm a geek, you know.
Yeah,
so
but you have to tell these two that Don's an engineer. Don went to Harvard originally as an engineer
Correct.
major.
Really?
So
Yeah.
when he says he's a geek, he's
Literally.
really is a geek.
Yeah.
You know, so that I think that informs a lot
What
of
type
what
of
you
engineer?
do.
I was a computer guy.
Oh, wow.
Well, I was studying computers in the early '80s. In fact, we at Harvard we had the first IBM PC and the first Mac. What they used to call the Mac Classic was the Mac at that time.
Wow.
So the IBM PC, to put it in perspective for you, if you have any technical knowledge, the IBM PC that we had was 1981, and the Mac came out in 1982, right behind it. At least that's when we got it. It had 128 kilobytes of main memory.
Yeah.
And the storage was floppy drives, no hard drive at that time.
Right.
The IBM XT came out in 82 with a 10 megabyte hard drive. 10 megabyte hard drive. So all the computers that we had used before were time-shared computers. So the drives, all our data was stored.
Mainframe on the paper with the holes on the side, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't that. We were past
That's
that.
me.
That was a little later. A little later. They stored 256 megabyte hard drive was half of this, a machine that's half of this size. That was 256 megabytes of storage. And that was time shared amongst like 100 of us.
Yeah.
Or more.
I think I have overstored in that thing.
You might have some.
I've been doing it for a
today.
long time, you know.
Exactly, that's right. But yeah, so that was the era of computing I came up in. So our whole thing was efficiency. I learned assembly language, and you know we were almost right down to zeros and ones, and so it was quite a great education.
My hat's off to you, man. That's amazing.
To make a more, let me put words in your mouth for a second here. So because this is his starting point, right? And so then how he approaches his music. This is how he approaches his music business. So because Don knows tech. You know, he can. Last year at our 50th anniversary party, we had a real problem with the the facility with the equipment in the room. And between two other people, thank the Lord we had, and Don, literally crawling around on the floor
We decoded
to
whatever had to be
fix
done.
the problem so that we could actually go up with the show. But, you have a studio in your own house. You have,
Right.
computers that do all kinds of fancy schmancy
This
things.
thing, right?
And your phone and everything. So the point is, he's very well rounded, so that's kind of where you got to think, because obviously the music business is not quite the same as it was, Ron, when you were out on the road, was it?
No, it's not anything close to that. It's, what I like to tell the younger people is, you are your own mom and pop corner store.
Yeah.
You're your own boss. You've got a business that you've got to sell. You got to make it out there. You got to present it. You have to work it. You have to find the gigs. But it's like that. You have a bodega on the corner.
That's right.
And if you have that attitude and you play well, you'll do fine. That's what I think.
And I think,
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, not unlike every small business, each of our little small businesses are different.
Right.
Each of them have a different character. I remember coming up and thinking, and in a way this was kind of true, Don will probably second this motion, there was like a scene you wanted to be part of. You wanted to latch into this
Absolutely.
thing, play with, right? We wanted to get with somebody's band.
Right.
Yeah, you got a list. I want to play with this band,
Yeah.
and I'm going to prepare myself. And now, not so much. There aren't
Right.
that many working bands.
Less than it was, a lot less.
Yeah.
A lot less.
Yeah.
And now the paradigm, if you had to boil it, somebody came from Mars and said, what's a working jazz musician? Well, okay.
Starving.
He or she has a teaching job. Somebody who's not starving. You got a teaching gig, and these are named people like these guys,
Yeah.
and like you got a teaching gig, and you have a certain amount of people that hire you as a sideman, and you've got your own gigs and a reason to have your own gigs. That's another philosophy.
And writing.
Yeah, writing. Yeah, keep writing. And there's it's multifaceted. My scene is kind of interesting. I had a teaching gig for a while at University of Maryland. Now that's been replaced with I direct a festival in Oregon. It's not purely jazz; it's an American music festival with singers, and the money's good, and it's in many ways it's a great gig, and that kind of helps me do all kinds of other things. And I travel around, and then I got annual gigs, as you probably do. The certain festivals that I go to every year, and and there are these events called jazz parties. Does anybody know about those? You've probably.
they still
We have a
have
similar thing.
Oh, yeah, there's a couple
college.
still going.
Kind
Yeah,
of dying
that's
out
just-
though.
But they're kind
Yeah.
of, well,
Is-
the line is they're dying out, but they were saying that 10 years ago when I kind of like the great clarinetist Ken Poplawski got me involved in those many years ago. And so, okay, I started playing all of them. There was one in LA, there was one in Florida, there's one in
Roswell.
Roswell, New
There used to be
Mexico.
one in,
Charlotte.
in Denver, wasn't there one in
There was
Denver?
one in Denver. That's where it started,
That's
really.
right, Denver,
Texas.
and
There were
and Texas.
probably like 8 of them,
Right.
and I ended up playing all of them every year, And then a couple of them dropped off, and then COVID happened, and a couple
Oh,
more.
Vail. What one in Vail? That's just.
Well, that's
Vail,
just,
that's-
that's,
yeah,
that
that
just
one-
went
that
down.
one-
Yeah.
That one
That's
is
a
really
huge
went to
festival,
the-
though.
Yeah,
I was in
and I've
Vail, I
done
was
that
at
one too,
Aspen.
but that's more like a
Aspen.
real jazz.
Yeah.
And it's like
Nice.
very
Yeah, so
heavy,
great.
very high level.
Yeah,
John
yeah.
Clayton and
Yeah,
Louis
yeah, yeah.
Nash.
Now it's like
That's right.
University of Miami runs it, right?
Yeah, it's Frost maybe.
But these smaller things that are just basically
That's
they take
Shelley
place in a
Bird.
hotel.
Yeah,
ball.
Shelley Burke there. Christian
Yeah, yeah.
McBride's the artistic.
Or
man.
those
So there's that,
cruises
but
that
that's a
Shelley Bird
different.
does a cruise.
I don't know if these guys would ever even want to do that, but they're actually there's some good things about those, and then you book one of those, and then you book a little gig on the side.
Exactly.
So you're doing one in Eugene, Oregon, and then you say, well, I want to now book my own quartet gig in
Portland or
Portland.
whatever.
So it's
Yeah.
so it's like there's this patchwork thing that's what I like.
Right, same here. I
So,
think we're all in
Ron,
the
yeah.
same boat with that.
It's like a portfolio type of environment where you're like, everybody's pie chart looks a little bit different.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, John.
But you got to be willing to do that.
Good.
Ron, can you share some anecdotes with the boys on your days on the road with Jerry?
Hi, John.
Keep the thought for 1 second. Let me just add one more thing to our last topic about the bodegas. 'Cause I love that
Analogy.
that analogy. And so, what I want to say about that, because if you know about the bodegas, or they're not bodegas, they're I guess the delis in New York City. Especially the Korean ones, they work together a lot. And one of the things that keeps those Korean delis so strong is that they look out for each other, and there's a networks of them that keep each other strong. That's the other thing I want to add to this whole analogy is that fact of cooperation is huge. And it's huge in jazz.
Oh,
it's huge in jazz.
you can't survive without it.
Can't survive without it. So that's the American kind of ethos of work and success and business is not that in the American version of it. The American version is I'm going to take over stuff and I'm going to be the best and blah blah blah. So don't throw that out because there's some value to that, but don't let that be about what you're about. Just understand what that is and you synchronize with that. But in the end, your tribe or your team are your long term, and it changes of course on a regular basis. But that cooperation. I can't tell you how many things we've done over the years, different things we've done. Or any number of us, that we know each other based on just pure cooperation. Overlapping, our different worlds overlap, and then they go separate and whatever. And so that's just a very important thing that you don't never lose sight of. If there's competitions, it's cool, etc. Because competitions have their place, etc. That's part of what we're doing. But the synchrony of the teamwork aspect of it is huge about what the music is, both at a microcosmic level on the bandstand, and levels out macrocosmically, going bigger and bigger. So I just want to point that out. So
and I agree with what you're saying. You need to go out and sit in. You need to go out and meet people. I mean, that's
the way it works.
You got to network it, man. You got to shake hands and say, "Hey, I play. Let's play."
Yeah.
And maybe invite people to your home and jam
absolutely.
instead of just the jam sessions, because I feel like that can be, limiting.
You mean the jam sessions like in clubs and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It can be tough and limiting, but if you find some people you like, get their numbers, you bring them over to the house or your apartment.
We all did so many of those.
And that's important. We do that. We've been doing that for years. And
that's great.
The other thing is I just partnered up with someone with Cheryl Bailey. We have a project featuring Jerry Bergonzi.
Oh, yeah.
And we wrote the music, Cheryl and I, and it's so much easier to do this with someone else because she does half the tasks, I do the other half. She's good at certain things, I'm good at other things. So like the project is moving forward. I'm not just sitting at home thinking, oh my God, I have all this stuff to do. Because it just makes it easier,
It's great. Collaboration.
Yeah.
Ron, you should tell the story about the gig with the Italian Prime Minister in Long Island City.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of things that happened with Jerry in 7 years. But first of all, it was on a different level. It's a pretty high level musically and a high level traveling wise. So there's not that many horror stories called road stories where you're stuck for 3 days and you don't have any money. Band didn't pay you, so it wasn't that. There were other issues involved.
Okay.
So this one, we show up I just started working with Jerry for about 6 months, and I get a call from his offices, show up in Long Island City at this catering hall, and it's for the Prime Minister of Italy.
Okay.
So I'm always early, especially with drums and shit. So I pull up and I take the drums out of the car and I go in through the front door. And here comes the caterer. And he says, no! Musicians come in the back.
Right.
I said, well, that's not going to work when Jerry says so.
Right.
So I said, okay. So I just put the drums by the side and sat there and waited. And the limo pulls up and Jerry gets on. What are you doing here? Why don't you set up? I said, well, he wants me to come in through the back. He goes, oh, really?
Oh boy.
He gets his bearing, he's walking, that guy does the same thing to him. Jerry, okay, fine. You know what, we're just going to go home. We're not going to play. And you can tell the Prime Minister of Italy why we went home. Because you couldn't let us in the front door. All of a sudden, the door is parted.
That always works.
It always works.
Nobody wants to be responsible.
No.
I did a lot of club dates stuck in the plaza in the garbage area where they're like, you can't go out the front with all your stuff.
That's when showbiz is so grand.
And I'm like, I'm sitting here with amongst massive garbage and waiting for someone to open the door.
In a tux, so all dressed up.
Yeah, totally dressed up.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, no, that happened.
Yeah, the pseudo glitterati thingy, whatever you call that.
Show business is so grand until you're, dressing in the,
in the hallway.
Hallway, well, that's, yeah, or the, the walk-in.
Or the Russian tea
fridge.
room, they're like, we have dinner for you guys. I'm like, cool. So they go, but you need to eat in the hallway, and we don't have any. And they gave us like steaks, and they're like,
No utensils.
with no utensils.
Ah, lovely.
It's like, oh come
Like
on.
medieval times.
It's like
Well, you-
really, wow, that's really interesting.
You know the guy who, he used to clean up behind him.
Right.
Horses.
Elephants.
Elephants and horses in the circus, you know. One guy goes, how the hell do you do that every day? I mean, it's disgusting work. Why don't you just quit? What, and give up show business?
So Oscar, how do you piece together, well, not that you necessarily have to piece anything together, but so you have this very important job as director at Montclair. So do you find that you don't get to do as much gigging or because of it, or do you just...
No, you have to balance it. You have to balance it. I mean, I'm off to Switzerland in a week,
And the university's good about that? To let you...
It's not a problem until it's a problem.
Well, because
So-
Richard has aspirations to be a teacher.
Yeah, that's the
so,
situation. So I'm at school for jazz and music education.
Good
So
job.
I'm starting to teach like at a high school in Jersey
Right.
twice a week. And I'm also, and on top of that, I also have 19 credits of class. So I'm like,
Wow.
I have all this. I have like a dumb biology class I have to take. I have all these like other.
Hey, biology's cool, man.
Step
Biology is-
graduated.
For some people,
Not
Don.
dumb. Not dumb. Like it's dumb. Like I learned this stuff in high school. Like I felt like I'm not like learning anything. It's like it's all like the same
Waste your
stuff.
time. Yeah.
Just being repeated.
That's
Exactly.
probably the science.
It's William
Oh,
Patterson
okay.
biology. It's
Copy that.
William Patterson biology is definitely a different biology.
Copy that.
Definitely. So it's all that, and I'm trying to balance it. So it's like sometimes when I have some time on the weekends, like I just set up my horn and I just like stare at it, and it's kind of like wavy. I mean, I'm like, I just feel.
I mean, I think if you're doing all those things, you're getting the training you need for. If you can make it work at this level,
Yeah.
there's no reason why you can't make it work when the stakes are higher, so to speak. You know what I mean? One thing I've learned in terms of balance is always do the long-term thing first, the thing for you. So for me, that's always practicing. So if I don't practice by 10 a.m., chances are it's not going to happen.
Right.
So I make sure it's the
Absolutely.
first thing I do when I
Absolutely.
go.
That's
Because that's my
Same
time.
here.
You know, so you
Same
pay
here.
yourself before you pay others.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Really good, yeah.
And then just, the reality is I say no to most things that come my way.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I say no to most things.
So I'm eternally grateful that you said yes to us.
The timing works perfect.
Well,
Had this
nothing-
been yesterday
I
or
do
tomorrow.
love perfect,
Yeah.
so that's great.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of it. Because when you say yes to somebody else, you're kind of saying no to yourself. And you just have to, the older you get and the more things come across your plate or your desk, so to speak, you got to figure out what its value is, And after a while, it's not about money, It's about time and experience and people, And so I'm fortunate that I have a gig that pays me year round, so that I can say no to things I don't want to do. But you don't get that overnight, So
Even though Oscar looks like he's 16, he really might not be.
So you're doing music ed,
Yeah.
which means do you have eyes to teach in the public school system?
At some point, if I can
Right.
get an opportunity performing wise first, my plan is I want to probably take a gap year after this just to like breathe, and then I probably want to get my master's in performance, like
Cool.
just performance, and then
No,
at some
yeah,
point
there's no rules that just if you get certified to teach that you have to actually
Yeah,
go
exactly.
into it. You know what I mean? Right away. You can always have that in your back
Yeah.
pocket.
And Oscar, you just got your
definitely.
PhD
Yeah,
in
DMA. Yeah.
Doctor of Music?
Yep, DMA is Doctor
We
of
should be
Music
calling you
Arts.
doctor.
Musical
Of
arts.
course.
Oh, we should be calling you Dr.
Doctor.
Perez.
Oscar, can you talk about, you just finished.
It hurts when I do this. Don't do that.
Ensemble.
Oh yeah, that's what. Yeah, I was in Atlantic City this week. They asked me to conduct the All-State Jazz Ensemble.
Great.
Yeah, which was fun. We did a performance there on Thursday night, and then we're doing something at NJ Pack with Stephon Harris on Friday. So yeah.
That's great.
But it was 17 students from 15 different high schools. So
Correct.
They did not play together.
Yeah. We did like 3 rehearsals. 2 rehearsals, like one in September, one in October. Then we went to Atlantic City. We did 2 all-day rehearsals, just to prepare.
Are these high schoolers?
Yeah, really, really good players.
It's like Nesmith thing.
Yeah, they are.
Exactly, it's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. It's NJAJE.
Yeah.
Yeah, It's that organization really good players and everything. And it was fantastic because I was able to, bring in charts that I've been a fan of for many years. And
that's the fun part.
That's great. I even brought in some of my charts. You know what I mean? I was like, we're doing this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
They
Flesh
enjoy
them out.
it.
Exactly.
Exactly. You create. That's the other thing. You create opportunities for yourself, and you create opportunities for others. So one of the things that I really love about my position now is, I get to kind of, in essence, continue to build the program that because I've been to so many different schools. You know what I mean? As a student, and as an adjunct member. So, just seeing things the way you want to see them, and giving the students that experience, and playing your friends and all that kind of stuff is great as well.
Yeah,
but it's all about balance.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely been difficult since I'm still in like my development phase as a musician, and everyone's like, go out, make connections, go to sessions, and meet people. It's really hard to do that when I'm teaching, and then I have schoolwork and everything. So sometimes I feel a little discouraged with my playing.
It'll be there.
It'll be there.
It'll be there.
Yeah, you're still so young. You
you really do. So pace yourself. Pacing is important. And Muriel said it, and I want to reiterate it about taking care of yourself, because that's really, for the long game, like Oscar referred to, you're right. Your health and fitness, both mental, physical, spiritual, all that's is key to the long game. And if you don't really have that going, your health, mental health in particular, which they all connect, right? So health, physical, mental, physical, spiritual, all connect. And so you want to have your decisions and your habits and your process synchronized with your health and fitness goals. Goals is might be the wrong word. Maybe philosophy is better. Like the idea of being a healthy, strong person. And trust me, all of us who've been doing this for a long time, which is everybody here, the way we're able to do it is maintaining our health. Without, and stuff you do early affects what happens later. So you can experiment, etc., and with various aspects of life, but at the core, alcohol is a good example, right? So alcohol when young people is a big thing. I have a 24-year-old daughter, so I really know more than I want to know. But the thing is that in the end, balance is a good word. Oscar also referred to that. Like really, keep in mind that your core, your trajectory is healthy, strong, and so that if there's a deviation from that, no problem, right? But if something sucks you into a series of bad habits or bad associations, and then push you in a bad direction, that could be a problem, and it's not worth it. We'll just put it out there, and then you'll find your way. But as far as your hanging and stuff like that, time management, because in the end, don't be afraid to look down the line 6 months, 12 months, right?
Absolutely.
2 years, 3 years kind of thing. I'm gonna get through this, AYZ, XYZ certifications or whatever. You already plan a gap year. Gap year is gonna be your time that you said you're gonna breathe. Don't sweat. Don't let it get you down. In the gap year, the hangs will be there. They will be there. So but in the meantime, if you're taking care of your health along the way, and you're taking care of your relationships, you're taking care of your basic, your basic center, knowing that there's going to be deviations and missteps, etc. Mistakes, which we need our mistakes. So own our mistakes and work through it. Then it'll come to some extent. Certain things will become clear. I'll say one more quick thing about while I'm in this mode of taking care of oneself. Learn about money.
Just gonna say that.
Oh, yeah.
Learn about money, because our whole society runs on money, like it or not. We can bellyache about, oh my God, blah blah blah. Okay, complain a couple seconds with each other, whatever. But put that aside. Say, okay, that's all good. But let me go get some. let me go and give myself a good bank account. Let me make sure I got some good accounting practices and some good habits. Let me make sure I track my money and know what's going on. Let me learn about the stock market. Because now is the time to get some money into some stock market or real estate. Like that. Now
know how important health insurance is when it's time. Amen. When you're not on your parents' thing, and because that can devastate people. I had a good friend who talked me in kicking and screaming, we got to get health insurance. I was 27, 28 years old, and I said, I don't want to pay a month shell out at that time $35 a month or something, because I was a young and healthy guy. I said, I'm not going to give any I'll wait. That's something for adults later, when you're 60, no, it's very important because, we've seen this. How many times have we seen like a jazz musician who's successful people?
We get the GoFundMe's or whatever.
Yeah.
And then or they're just like you have to have huge benefits. Big. It used to be, now it's more GoFundMe, but it used to be like huge events where you try to raise $40,000-$50,000.
We can't do benefits anymore because we can't afford to rent the space.
Well, right, and then also like that doesn't make any sense because if you raise $50,000. That's a drop in the bucket for a serious health benefit. So
sure
insurance is important, and take care of yourself. Insurance is cheaper if you don't smoke, if you don't use alcohol too much, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, very good
That
advice.
stuff is really important. Like the best class I ever took in college, and I've been to a lot of colleges, was Mike Mossman's music business class, because half of the class was just about personal finance,
Wow.
the stock market, figuring out how to invest. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's held in the same regard now, but I remember 5 years after graduating, I owned a house. Just from the habits that he taught us.
Is that
That's
Berkeley?
amazing.
No, that was at Queens College.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that program for my master's.
Oh, Dave Berkman?
Yeah.
Dennis McGrail runs the arranging program.
Oh,
he'd kill him.
fantastic.
Dennis is
He's
awesome.
the best.
So that class, and I saw Mike recently, like at the Gen Conference when we saw each other in January.
Yeah.
And we emailed back and forth a little bit, but it was the first time we actually really hung in a long time, and I was just like really grateful that he taught me those things, and it made all the difference because it changed my perspective on like what jazz means to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And thankfully it got me to a place where I never felt. I always held the music in such high regard because I could afford to hold it in such high regard. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't freaking out about
Paying the rent.
paying the rent and having to, take every single gig and all that kind of stuff. So I always was able to play gigs for the love of the music, not for the music. You know what I mean?
So
You're lucky.
take Oscar's
Yeah, I know.
advice.
And I know I am.
Because my first 6 years in New York, I paid my dues.
Yeah.
I didn't have any work, and I had to do wedding bands, and that's
Right.
that's a glorified job at McDonald's.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I did that when I first got here. When I did that all through school as well, and
I
You learn a lot of rep that way.
I did
Pays
as
a little
well.
bit better.
Yeah.
It pays a lot better, That's the only reason I did it.
I wrote software as well,
an
whatever.
opportunity to interview Red Rodney. And it's a long story why I was interviewing him. But he told me a story where they got a gig at a bar mitzvah and Monk was in the band. And the money was incredible.
Right.
Compared to what they were making, the Monk is looking around and saying, this is great.
That's what's up, and don't be afraid to do. That's the other thing I want to say to you guys is don't be afraid to build skills in a couple different areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because my computer skills, man. I was first about 10 years in New York, in between my tours and stuff, because was good. The kids were fine, they paid good, but there was a lot of non-working weeks and months and whatever. Right? When I was in that software, man, doing that thing, and that's until I got the gig with Cosby later. That's when I was able to be a full-time musician and really make money and stuff. And then that was another story. But that was a full-time writing gig, which I just happened to get, which I already described to you. But before that, in between us writing software. We all teach, part-time, whatever. We all do what we need to do. During COVID, I talked to so many cats who did different gigs because there was no money coming in. So cats did what they had to do. And I was like, that's right.
I became a homework coach. Who knew? But
I also want you to talk about you're perhaps a little more diversified in your career. I had Broadway experience, or show experience. I used to play in symphony as a violinist and then a bassist. So I had these skills that I could follow a conductor. I would say to you guys, it would be good for you both to double. You on tuba and you on all the other stuff.
Absolutely.
Anything you can. If you go to double reeds, then you're going to be busy for the rest of your life.
I don't play the double reeds. I've been working on my clarinet and flute.
I mean the bassoon and oboe.
That's what she's talking about.
So
that would be the level.
that's a whole other thing, and there are people who.
Hear what she just said. Be diversified in those other instruments, competently diversified, and you will not go hungry. You'll work your whole life.
The rest of your life,
Yeah,
especially if you're a good doubler, and then if you do the double reeds, you add on to that. If you can play euphonium,
He's an amazing euphonium player.
and if you got that together, and then you add other skills like I mean, I just said I was a homework coach. In the pandemic, I became a realtor in the Berkshires because I was like, well, I don't, I'm like homework coaching, I'm teaching online, and I've always wanted to try something else because I never got to, because I've been working since I was, 15, literally doing gigs. And it was like time for me to try something else, and it's very similar to music for me, because you have to get back to people promptly, you need to,
The whole business side of it is
the business
very
side,
similar.
it's just the business side of music transferred over to the business side of real estate. And, I was a newbie, so I was still learning, but I did sell houses, and I still have my license, and I have clients. But I co-broke now because I have a show in town. I told you guys I'm at Some Like It Hot, but I've been doing Broadway for 30 years.
Just a little show.
Yeah.
Just a wee little show she's in.
Biggest hit.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
It's great, by the way, the show is
It's a great show, but my thing is I've wished I could have been a full-time jazz musician. But here's the thing.
Well, Bob Cranshaw said, jazz is not the whole dinner, it's just the dessert.
It's a dessert, and that's how I feel about it.
He did it all too.
He did it all.
He did Sesame Street.
He did Sesame Street.
For years. His pension on Sesame Street was off the charts.
Crazy.
So
Saturday Night Live, he was in the first SNL band.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm doing a session this week on a 5-string electric and 5-string fretless.
Yeah.
A lot of people just think, oh, she just plays jazz, or she just only plays electric, because sometimes the worlds don't
quite overlap.
They don't overlap, but that's what. So I actually like the diversity a lot.
Yeah.
I like it's just different, and it's exciting, to play jazz.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited to play with you guys, because you guys are like, high level cats.
Yeah.
And I don't.
Diversity is a beautiful thing.
It is.
That's one big message from what you said of the many. Diversity is a beautiful thing, and don't lock yourself into
because
that's huge.
We all know what a genius Phil Woods was, and he was a great player. But if I'm talking to somebody who doesn't know anything about jazz, and I mention Phil Woods, and they have this blank look on their face. So you ever heard Billy Joel's "Just the Way You Are"?
Right.
Remember the saxophone that was in there? That's
May I say one thing that's I think it's important too. And I don't think you guys will fall into this, but I remember seeing, and you guys have probably all seen this too, I remember seeing gentlemen and ladies, not more gentlemen, more guys than women, get kind of seduced by something that pays a lot of money and they only do that. That is not artistically satisfying at all.
Right.
But pays great. Maybe they need the bread. And specifically what I'm thinking of, I don't even know if this is relevant anymore, but like the club date scene, and people just do that, and they find out, they look back and they say, I've been playing weddings for 20 years, or
cruise ships.
Or cruise ships. There's another one. I have never seen anybody super happy that's only done that. Right. I've never. That says, yeah, I got some good money, and it's very rare, right? I mean, people get really burned out if they have no artistic out. If you got into this to be artists like you guys, don't do that. I remember feeling a little like I was playing when in the late 80s, when some of my road gigs had slowed down. I'd play a lot of gigs, like a lot of commercial gigs in DC. You could play Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights for political events, put your tuxedo on, make a few $100. Right. Yeah, that's good. You feel complete. And going through the kitchen and all that, the dumpster. And seriously, eating the club sandwich, you have 10 minutes.
You call it a bandwich.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
when I serve sandwiches, I'm sorry.
And it's like you don't want to, it's like at some point you make a decision, no, I'm going to say no to that. I'd rather go play a club and just feel fulfilled.
And go back to the B word, balance.
Balance.
So if you keep track of, don't lose yourself in.
Don't lose yourself.
I'll give you some advice. So write yourself a mission statement. What you want, what you want to be doing in 5 years, and then rewrite it every year to incorporate the things, because you shouldn't turn away from things that you like to do. You might find something that you really like to do that you can parlay that into something else.
Yeah.
Gigs like that, Yeah, be careful with those. That's what they call golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
Because now you start making that money, now you can't think of what life would be like without that money. You know what I mean?
And it gets comfortable.
It gets comfortable, and then you're like, well, now I can't, because now what am I going to do? You know what I mean? So.
And this is where personal finance management comes in handy.
Exactly.
You can compartmentalize that. You can realize what that is. Like it can be a specific zone. That's a pocket, that little box that goes into.
Remember how I told you I bought a house 5 or 6 years after I got it? Wedding band. Wedding band. You know what I mean?
And that was the goal, right?
And that was a goal. I was like, I want that.
You know what I mean? If you booked to play, you booked in with this wedding band. You're playing wedding gigs, and it's a band. You're the cat in that wedding band, and then you get a call from Don Braden to go to Europe. You know. He said, "Man, that gig pays nice, but when I get back, I need to still be in the." You're going to take this gig. You've got to say, whether it pisses those people off or not, you've got to do it. And I did that when I went with Charlie Bird, who's changed my whole life. You know, the guitar player, Charlie Bird, indeed. Changed my whole, and there was a guy, we just auditioned with this older guy who got this lounge restaurant gig, which, that seemed like a really nice gig for a minute. Like, oh, we're going to be playing every, 5 nights a week in the corner in this restaurant. And I get this call to go to Australia. There's no way I'm going to say no, and that's, I can give you a million instances in my career, probably yours too, where it's like, I got this really nice, and then the gigs got better. There were a lot of times I had to tell Charlie, I got an opportunity to play with Ray Brown. And he said, well, we're in the middle of a week at Blues Alley. I can't, and I said, okay. And I said, I hung the phone up and I said, I'm going to do this gig with Ray Brown. I called him back like 4 hours later. I said, Charlie, I really want to do this gig. He said, all right,
Work it out.
I was not going to miss an opportunity to play with him. And things like that, many things like that, where it's like, you got to, like you said, Oscar, watch out for take care of yourself. And you can do it and be a gentleman, and you can say, I'm going to offer to,
always.
you can
take the high road. Always take the high road.
Yeah, and I've taken, and it's cost me money. One time I got out 7 days of a gig to go play one night with Joe Williams, like at a concert in D.C., and it's like, I want to do that. I want to be on the bandstand with this guy.
Isn't it another important thing to know people that could sub for you if you want to get
always.
So I'm going to say keep a Rolodex. Now we don't use Rolodexes anymore, but you guys all keep it all on your phone, and But then you call Don and ask how to do the backup from that, so that you don't lose that list. Because as you, Marianne, as you pointed out earlier, you got a call 40 years later from somebody you had worked with that's still on your radar sheet somewhere.
Hi, would you like to work at Carnegie Hall? I was like,
pick right back up where you left off, in a sense.
That's so great.
And, who knew? For those of us that still operate in business cards and whatever, keep them. Put a little rubber band around them and keep them somewhere, because my grandmother used to always say, the people you meet on the way up, you might be seeing them on the way down. So you might want to have been great to them on the way up and, have a great relationship to work with them, perhaps at another time. But, I can't tell you how many times, with the various hats that I wear for this organization and then my own business and everything else, I'll be like, wait a minute, it's on my desk. And I will fish through, because I have a physical card, and I'm like, okay, there it is, and I can make the phone call, or I can call for the number of the other person that I'm really trying to get to, but I know that Oscar knew that, we were talking about it, you really have to be on top of that. And you two, I want to again thank you and commend you for your secretarial skills, for lack of a better word. Oscar's telling you to make sure your chops are good, and Don's telling you to make sure your finances are good. Marianne's telling you to diversify. Ron's telling you it's a long game. All of this. Chuck's telling you take a big gig. Sometimes it pays less, but it's going to be a bigger stepping stone. All this makes a big deal. But if you don't return the email, and then you return it in poor grammar, and it's a jumbo mess, and the dates are wrong, and date, time, and place. The three, that is the trifecta of how you're going to plan your life. Date, time, and place, and don't mess it up. And if you reread your email and you realize you have made an epic screw up, oh my God, send another one with the header that says, oh my God, I'm an idiot. Really, you have to make people understand you're paying attention to what you're doing. From the very first emails I received from both of you, I don't know if the rest of you heard me say this, but when they apply for the scholarship, it comes through me, and then I parcel it out to make it blind and all the things. But I do absolutely read everything, and I keep copious list so that I don't mess it up for anybody, right? And believe me, when you guys came through, it was very obvious that you are players in the field of where you want to be and what you want to do. Other emails you can tell come through and they're not going to be at that same level. They absolutely should be in the competition, but you could just tell by how disconnected they are, and they send 2 of the pieces of something and they don't send something else, and then you're just like, wow, I worry about these students because it's going to be hard. It's already a hard enough business, as you can all attest to. It's even harder if you can't keep your act together, and that means everything of that.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, you got to dot your I's and cross all your T's, because you never know what you didn't do will influence somebody's opinion of you and not hire you, or what you did do will influence them and they will hire you. So everything is important. All correspondence is important, and in a timely fashion, so you don't drive people crazy. Is he doing the gig? Is he not doing the gig?
And this is a small business.
Right, it's very small.
Word
travels.
Fast.
It's word of mouth.
Especially when the word is not that good.
Correct.
Really travels fast.
It travels faster.
Smack talk. Seriously, that goes around fast.
And the modality may change in terms of communication, but as of now, in 2023, email is still the most
Do not text me to death, please.
No, because I know that amongst this generation, like texting and DMs are the way that people communicate more often. I know that nowadays email for young people is snail mail for us.
Right.
We don't check it, but people our age who have the gigs and the money, that's how we communicate.
Well, I've learned things. We have a rising star feature in every issue of the magazine. Thank you so much.
Sandy, hold on one second. Don has to run.
Okay.
Thanks, but we're not finished quite yet.
Yeah, great.
All right,
Let's play again.
Thank you.
Play again one of these years.
Yeah, let's play.
Let's do it again.
Nice playing.
Thank you. We'll do more. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk.
Checks in the mail.
Okay, good. All right, y'all.
Bye, Don.
Take care.
All right.
So, perfect example for somebody who is so unbelievably on top of everything. When Don originally agreed to do this, and he's worked with the scholarship program for 2 years, he has a gig at Jazz Forum tonight in Tarrytown. Thought the gig was at 6. I thought the gig was at 6. I checked the website. It appeared that the gig was at 6. The gig is at 4. And so then he's like, Sydney, I'm like, oh, no. I will keep you for every last second. I can have you. I need you. And, and so it happens to the best. But, that was with him checking, me checking, and everyone checking. So, anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I started to say we have a Rising Star feature in every issue of the magazine, and we have an Rising Star opening act now for this program. And I've learned if I don't hear from someone, I have to text them, because I know that you guys look at your text first before you look at your email.
So you're still learning your tricks, Andy.
Yeah, so at this age, I'm still learning. But I mean, so that really resonated when you said.
When I first started in the business, we used carrier pigeons.
Oh my God, you're not that old.
Carrier pigeons.
Yeah.
So, if you had, you've already given. What was the best advice? I'm going to ask you all, and then we will wrap up. I want to ask each of you, what do you think was the absolute, I think should we do best or worst advice you ever received? What's the worst advice you ever received? And then don't do that. No. What do you think was the best? Well, you said it might have been. You may have already answered that question, but Oscar, what do you think was the number one best advice you ever received?
Wow.
Have I stumped the panel?
Yeah, I mean, just because there's so many, it's there's a lot, right? There's a lot.
Well, you don't have to just give one.
I can tell you mine.
Okay,
well,
cool.
thank you.
We'll let Oscar ruminate on that for a second.
Yeah. So it was back to this guitar player, Barney Kessel, who was one of my mentors. And when I was very young, he said, play every gig as if it's the most important gig of your life, whether it's here, whether it's in an elementary school, Carnegie Hall, because whatever it is, it's important. Play it with conviction, and of course, that leads to how do you do that? And you have to dig within yourself and say, well, why is this? Why would I want to do that? And it's because I want to be ready when that huge gig happens. I want to be like, I want to have done this every night that I show up and play. So that was the best advice.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, and
okay, Oscar, you're up.
Well, because this was actually, it wasn't the best piece of advice, but it was the earliest piece of advice that made a huge difference in my life. So when I was in college, I went to the University of North Florida in Jacksonville, and Joe Henderson came down to play with the big band and do a week residency with us and everything like that. And after one of the rehearsals, I was taking the shortcut to a class I had to get to, and he was behind some bushes and he was smoking. And I just saw it as a golden opportunity to talk to Joe Henderson away from the crowds, And I just went up and I just said, thank you for your music. I love your music, and I'm so glad you're here with us and everything. And he just started. I missed my class. I never made it to class because he just talked. He just
seizing the opportunity to talk to Joe Henderson.
Exactly. I was not going to walk away from Joe Henderson. And he told me a lot of stories about being on the scene and hearing Coltrane and hearing Sonny Rollins and all that kind of stuff. And his thing was like, I just kept playing, even though I wasn't. And here I am, all these years later, being heralded as a living legend. I just kept playing. You know what I mean? And then I looked around, and all of a sudden things were good. Okay. You know what I mean? So the idea is like you may not see, you don't know what you don't know, and you haven't seen what you haven't seen. So for him, it was just like staying true to himself and continuing to do it, and then having things look completely different. Every 5 or 10 years, the scene would change, people would change, Train passed away, all this sort of stuff. All these things happened, all of a sudden he found himself in this position of having something. But it wasn't because he
wasn't fully formed when he was 19.
Exactly. He wasn't planning on what his life was going to be like 20 years later. He just kept doing it.
That's great.
And so I realized that, wow, my life's not going to, my career doesn't just, I won't be able to see it for what it's going to become, in every great detail. I just knew that I wanted to graduate, move to New York, start playing with people that I had met, and then,
It's great.
So, keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Marianne, please.
That's a really tough question for me, because I'm like, did I ever get advice? It kind of came from me observing what was going on around me. I did like one of my teachers, John Clayton, said do a 3-month plan, a 6-month plan, 1 year, 5 year, and I still do that today. And then I can look back and I see, oh my God, I actually got some of that stuff
Success,
done.
right? You can tick
It's
off
shocking.
It's
It's in there unconsciously. That stuff really works. But that's like
you write it down, it becomes like a visual thing.
It is, and that's in a number of business book. I think Carnegie.
Yeah, Dale
wrote
Carnegie. Think and Grow Rich, all that stuff.
Yeah. So that was just a basic thing. But I just observed what people were doing, and I was like, my teachers were all great, and I just like soaked it in. I'm not sure if they actually gave me advice. I don't know. Like, I just took whatever I had and tried different stuff. If that makes any sense at all. I really just, okay, I'll try that. Because I saw what they were doing. They were examples.
Exactly.
They were examples. Like, how do I really want to live? Well, I'd like to have a house or two. Did that. 2 houses. And, that is something like John Clayton is a great person to, as a mentor.
Yeah.
He just is a kind person. He's diversified. He's an arranger. He's a band director. And I wanted to do that. So I would just say observing others is a really good way to go. Like I'm observing even what's happening here today, and people's stories, and it's important.
For sure.
All right. My motto, my mantra, especially as I'm aging, is never give up. You just never give up. You just keep doing it. You keep doing what you do. If you love it, you keep working at it. You'll get better at it. And 99% of us are never going to be stars. That's not why you do it. That's not why I did it. I did it because I liked playing the instrument. And then I liked learning about the instrument. And then I liked playing gigs on the instrument. And I loved the people that I played with. You're not going to find people any funnier than musicians. I've laughed the last 60 years of my life. It's a laugh riot, you know, and you're around creative people, you're all doing the same thing, but you are yourself, and you are responsible for yourself. That's the thing. Whatever happens, you brought it on. Whether it's a good thing, if the career takes off, if the career doesn't take off, if you play good, if you don't play good, it's your choice, and it's about the amount of work you put in on it. You know. And the other piece of advice was when I was a few years younger, and I said, so what? How can I get better? And this guy says, okay, the next time you listen to a record, the first time you listen to it, listen to one cut, listen to the drummer, listen to it again, listen to the bass player, only the bass player. Don't let anything else that's happening next. Piano player, don't listen to the bass player, the drummer, nothing else that's happening, just the piano. So you can really isolate and find out what makes it all work. How does this all work together?
Now there's an app for that.
Yeah, I know. There's an app for everything.
What?
But it's you know, and the other thing, you have to be creative. Somebody said you got to be thinking down the road a bit, and I think you did. And an example is when I first got to New York, I had to do weddings. But of course, the slow season is January, February, March. There's nothing going on, and I can't go 3 months without making bread. So I hooked up with a friend that I knew when I went to school, an Italian guy living in Turin, in Italy, and I said, "Hey, man, I'll come over for a couple of weeks and we put together a band." And with that one phone call, I went about 10 years every January, February, March, going to Italy and touring all over. So it's one thing that you go outside of yourself to try to accomplish. It might work. You got to try. You got to be thinking. You got to be creative. Always looking forward. Always looking ahead. There's no work there. What am I going to do in that space? Right? How am I going to make that happen? So you have to be on top of yourself all the time. You know?
So I'm going to wrap up and say, absolute heartfelt thank you to each of you pros that have given us your day. One of the best things about what I get to do with the Jazz Society is to, send an email to somebody I don't necessarily know, and to get wonderful replies back.
Eventually.
Well, no, that was. I'm going to forgive you. I'm calling you again. Don't worry. This is doubled the. No, it worked out. The universe gave me twice as much, so it's.
Well, I got to meet Ron Vincent,
and you two got to meet.
I'm so glad.
And that was nothing.
That was
worth a lot to me.
But no, really, when I sit, there's a moment when I sit down in front of that blinker, the blinking cursor or whatever, and I think like, what can I say? It's one thing to be able to shoot you an email, and sort of shorthand say, can you help? I know it's short and blah, blah, blah. For people that I don't know, I try to be a bit more formal, if you will, and, really impart. And so I don't think I've ever had an email come back as fast in my life as the one from you. Yeah. And, Ron played for us last month, and I was so captivated by meeting him and watching his work. So I had asked him after the show, would you play with the young people? And on top of it all, you were all so generous to say, yes, I would be delighted to help the next generation of musicians. Of Obviously, this is what this is what jazz imparts, right?
Yes.
James Pansula, who has been very keen on our scholarship committee and things, and our Rising Stars champion back there, he puts his money where his mouth is when it comes to bringing up young musicians. I don't believe James is you're not a professional musician, no?
No.
Yeah.
Just musician support.
A professional cheerleader.
My
James is...
musicians.
Yeah.
The class of 2012, 2013, 2014, now out here a decade. And they've been, so now pushing 30, 31, eat, sleep, play, eat, sleep, gig.
Yeah.
Eat, sleep,
Sandy,
private lesson.
For your, Sandy started this Rising Star article in the magazine kind of as it was a little kind of one-offy at first.
Well,
and then it became a whole...
the first Rising Star was March, April issue of 2020, and it was on Evan Sherman, who I guess is
Sandy has an
Rising
innate,
Star, but yeah.
And Sandy has an innate ability to spot talent. So it's been such a wonderful development. And you know, when we switched the scholarship program to a competition, you know, Oscar gave me some great advice. You know, obviously Don was on that panel, Muriel was on that first panel. I didn't really know what I was sort of doing in a sense, you know. I didn't have a form. Ted Chubb, who wasn't here today, maybe you know him. Ted wrote me back on a sidebar like, "Oh, girl, you got to have a form." I'm like, "I have to have a form? What form? Do you have a form?" I don't have a form. You know, and what I had done is I had done a little bit of homework and gotten all the people that do competitions, right? Downbeat and everyone. And I'd read their rules, and I'm like, okay, well, which are the best of the rules that make sense for us, right? So I thought I had done really well, and Ted's like, "You have to have a form." And I'm like, "A form? Oh my God!" And he's like, "Well, I have a form." I'm like, "Great, could you send it? Because I don't have time to make a form." You know, so, and then, you know, Don's like, the computer geeky is, he sends me a separate. He's like, "This form doesn't work. I'm going to fix it." I'm like, okay. So Don rewrote the code on the form, so then the form worked. You know, so you know, it takes a village. This job takes a village, and I want to thank all of you for being part of the Jazz Society's village, and you know, for always answering Sandy's calls. And we expect and look forward to great things from both of you. You really have been such delights, and the other two that are not here, I have equally as high hopes for. Banks and for Grace. Grace Fox just did a big gig this summer. I don't know if any of you were there, in her Times Square big band did a big thing through Lincoln Center. And Banks unfortunately has taken a little bit ill, but he also has a wonderful big band piece that got...
Well, it was Terrell Stafford included in his
latest production, right?
I think either on the album or it was a concert. I'm not sure.
Okay, so the point is...
Oh, I know what it was. The Jack Rudin Championships. They're held every... It was Banks' piece was in that performance.
Great. So the bottom line is, you are amongst the greats, and you are going to be the next generation of our greats, and we look forward to watching it.
Yeah, I just want to add one little anecdotal thing in terms of when I talk to young musicians. I always ask them, what was it that made you decide you want to do this? And with Richard, you were at a concert, you heard Steve Davis playing trombone. Right. And at that point, you were already playing trombone, but that kind of was the catalyst that really got you going. And yours was very interesting because you said you had a middle school teacher who taught you did a very good job of teaching you that liking jazz was really cool. And I wanted to explore that with you a little bit, because when you go to a lot of jazz concerts in New Jersey, not so much in New York, but in New Jersey, you see a lot of great young musicians on the stage, but you see a lot of old people in the audience. So how do you translate that from the musicians to the fans? I guess
It was kind of a social thing for me at first. It was like I came up in an area in North Carolina where like all of my friends were really into it, because it was like a social thing, and that made us like want to listen to it more and like learn more about it. And like none of us were really thinking like this is what we're gonna do, or anything like that, you know, or even thinking of it like professionally. You know, we played like silly gigs here and there, like reading out of like the Easy Real book or something, like in middle school.
Yeah, but the seed is planted that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we all like, you know,
everybody's got their
even
some of these that happened.
Exactly.
Yeah, some of these are still I think most of these people that I played with are like doing it now. You know, like went to high school with and stuff. Yeah, so like it also was an environment that encouraged me to practice and like learn more about this stuff. And so then I was like, I also just grew very attached emotionally to the music. Yeah, it just became.
Well, I would like to impart some of your wisdom on how we can somehow figure out how to get younger people into the room, because you're going to find that in a lot of your gigs you will have older people in the room, and no disrespect to older people, we love them, and I'm fast becoming one of them, and I'm fast becoming one of them. That. So the point is, but what happens when we are the last of the few standing, right? I mean, we have to do something to get your age group. While you might like jazz, it's not translating to being in the room where it's happening, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I'm going to need some brain picking from you on that.
Well, I can just jump in here.
Yeah.
First off, if you go to Mesro or Smalls,
Right,
the
they
place is
have
packed
younger
with young
people.
people.
That's
Sure.
because those two clubs are so hip and you know,
But not
he
like
does-
the jazz parties, the
Spike.
jazz cruise.
No, those are older
No, that's
folks.
older
Yeah.
folks.
And I, it's like, and even in the Berkshires where I have my real estate license, I do a lot of gigs up there, and the people that come out are the older generation. I appreciate that, but it's like,
Well,
So then how
I
do we
gotta say that.
replicate
I
Mesro
gotta
and
say-
Smalls?
Okay, so I'm not sure if we'll be able to replicate Mesro and Smalls everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
But I will say that 20 years ago, when I started doing those jazz parties, and I did the first jazz, I mean, for me, the first time I ever did the jazz cruise was probably 20 years ago. People were saying the same thing, man, these old people are going to be gone in 15 years, and it's like, that's going to be it. Well, a friend of mine made a joke. He said, we'll always work because there will always be old people.
Well,
And the thing is, it was a joke. But the thing is,
There's such truth
when
in
people get to be a certain age, they want something sophisticated. Maybe not everybody. I mean, maybe people that grew up on hip hop, they're going to want to hear hip hop for their whole life. But there are a lot of people that want something more. And that just keeps happening. I've seen it. You've seen it happen,
No,
right?
I've got a perfect example of I think this is the main problem.
I'm not worried.
So
Okay. Oh, good. I'm glad.
I do these little shows, been doing it for years and years and years. It's 50 minutes, the history of jazz in 50 minutes, at grammar schools, middle schools, whatever, high schools. And every so often, a kid will come up after we're finished and they'll go, wow, I really like that music. I've never heard it before.
Right.
Yeah.
How can you like something you never heard? It's not on the radio.
not
You got to be force-fed this stuff.
But that's what started with us. When we grew up, we heard it someplace. We said,
I heard it on the radio.
Oh, wow. And chances
I
are
fall
we were
asleep to
hearing
the jazz
something
station
20
every
years
night.
before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
absolutely.
whatever.
I think generally your generation is going to be thinking about this in packaging the music in a way so that it gets to the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And bringing the music to the people.
Well,
You know what I'm
and I'm keen and interested and
Because
can't
I'll
wait
tell
to
you,
see it because
Smalls has a great audience, but half the people that go to Smalls, they're there for, they don't really know jazz.
It's a scene.
They don't
Yeah.
do jazz.
It's a scene.
Yeah.
It's the hip place to be.
It's a hip place to be. But guess what? They leave there going, I like that music. I like that
Exactly.
artist. So that's bringing the music to the people.
And they
so you
do
have
put
to
their
find
phones down. It's really interesting. They're
Well, they
not.
listen and they're quiet and they're not
Yeah.
talking.
You know what's made me think that the small scene has made me think a lot about the old days when you see grainy black and white pictures of Bill Evans playing someplace or something, and the audience, they got shades on and they're smoking cigarettes
Yeah.
and look so hip,
It's the
and they're
same.
like everybody there is a jazz aficionado. Maybe not. Maybe they were there because they thought they were hip too.
Yeah.
And Bill Evans actually talked about that. He said, I think the reaction of lay people
Right.
to the music is just as important. It's if you're moved.
If anything, it's more important.
Yeah, I mean, because they're the ones who are going to pay
Somebody
for
who
our
does it,
careers,
Right?
Yeah.
and it's like it's okay, it's all cool. Anybody that comes through the door, it's fine.
It's your job as artists to connect with people.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's
very
and you have to figure out how. Like now, I was talking to a student last night about Instagram and algorithms and funnels and blah 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 and this and that and the other. Yeah, but guess what? There are people out there who are figuring out how to get Grammy nominations because of their use of Instagram.
The algorithm.
And the algorithm.
That's what we need done.
So lean into that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because
And then
that's
call
your
me and tell me what I can do to lean in. But we all have to lean out at the moment to get dressed and get the room reset. And this has been amazing. Thank you so much. And I hate to cut it short, but we have music to make.